Good evening. From Republican Convention Hall in Detroit, I'm Jessica Savitch.
She was a trailblazer as one of the first female network news anchors, and the audience loved her. In 1982, viewers voted Jessica Savitch more trusted than Ted Koppel and Charles Kuralt, more than Tom Brokaw and Peter Jennings. She was only 35 years old.
It's a little early for them. I understand the problem. Okay, let me try again.
A year later, she was dead.
Forecasters can't tell
On
yet
television,
if this storm will hit Mexico
she was the perfect
or Texas.
marriage of beauty and brains, of news and showbiz. Behind the scenes, she was tormented. Love would forever obsess and elude her. Drugs would dull her pain and be named for her undoing. Now we unveil the mystery that was Jessica Savitch. Never before seen are these personal mementos she left behind, precious keepsakes that reveal the layers of her life, and a telling water-stained address book found with her when she died. Tonight, her family and lifelong friends share their memories of a woman who was known as the Golden Girl of NBC News, a woman who sacrificed it all to become an idol to millions.
My name is Jessica Beth Savitch. I was born in 1947 in the Delaware Hospital.
Jessica Savitch liked to write about her life. She was only in grade school when she first began reporting the facts of her growing up. Jessica's world revolved around her father, and she was the star of his home movies. It was a simple time. Jessica was the oldest of 3 girls born to Florence and David Savitch. She took happiness for granted. Stephanie Savitch, 2 years younger than Jessica, was one of Jessica's closest confidants throughout her life.
My earliest memory of Jessica. I guess I was about 5 and she was about 7. And there was a bully in the street who was really bothering me. And Jess came out and she beat him up. She got a broken nose, but she beat him up and he never bothered us again.
Lori Savitch was born 9 years after Jessica. The girls would have an idyllic childhood, growing up in the town of Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, where David Savitch ran the family business.
Dad was really important. He was like the light. He had a great sense of humor. We were always laughing when we were around him. Jessica was like that as well. Her wit was fabulous. Her sense of humor was wonderful. Whenever we were together, we laughed constantly, and that is what she took from my dad. Our time with him was so special.
During the Savitch family's all-American dinners, her father enjoyed discussing current events. Jessica would study her weekly reader so she could do the news with Dad at the dinner table. But even in this perfect world, the first seeds of insecurity were taking root.
I often wish I were perfect, because if I were perfect, then nobody would find fault with me.
On the brink of adolescence, Jessica would suffer a loss and never fully recover. She was only 12 when David Savitch slipped from her life forever. Her father died at the age of 33 from kidney disease, robbing her of all the adoration and acceptance that he once gave her. His death shattered her world.
Jess's grief was really deep. It was, I can't say it was any deeper than the rest of ours, but she was never the same either. She seemed to be so much more intense after his death. And we were not allowed to go to the funeral of my dad, so there was no closure. We didn't grieve as children, and I think that had an effect on all of us later.
There would be a day in Jessica's adulthood when she would command an audience of millions, but she would forever feel a yearning for the one person who was missing, the one who never saw her on television, who never saw her become a woman.
she developed a very hard shell of confidence. It appeared to be confidence. Underneath of it, she was very frightened, understandably very frightened. And I think that might have carried through most of her life.
After David Savitch's death, Jessica's mother was never the same. Once animated and warm, Florence Savitch became emotionally withdrawn. When the family moved to the seashore town of Margate, New Jersey, everything familiar in Jessica's life was gone. Her father, her home, her friends, even in a way, her mother. As a teenager, Jessica began to attract the attention of others, especially the boys. One young man took her on a date to WOND, the radio station where he worked. Eager to impress her, he let Jessica broadcast the station's call letters. When she heard her voice on the air, Jessica's destiny was fixed. Celebrity was her reward when she became a co-host for a teen radio show. It made Jessica a local star. Fame began to soothe the ache in her life.
It was a very important thing and made her a very special person within her high school as having a radio show. And that approval also was really important for her.
The Trons from 1966 at 7 away from 7 o'clock, that's called...
In college, Jessica was known as the honeybee of WBBF radio.
Jessica. And friends and neighbors, that just about wraps up the honeybee portion of the $1 Million...
Stardom became her lifeblood, dictating her every move. Jessica was committed to go where no woman had gone before, the top of the TV news business. On a chance stroll in front of a live TV campus camera, Jessica won over her first viewer, a young man who lit up her life with humor, Tony Bush, a senior broadcast major.
We happened to capture her on camera, and it was almost like a magic in the fact that the camera loved her very much, and it was obvious that she loved the camera.
The first time that we met Tony, we were so astonished because he looked so much like our father.
And I think we were very much, at that time, in love with each other.
The love Tony lavished on Jessica wasn't enough. She was lured by achievement. Tony saw the handwriting on the wall.
I broke it off. It wasn't working. I felt that I was becoming someone that perhaps was standing in the way of what she wanted to do. But I don't think she could afford to pay the price of loving and the fact that it took away from her career.
Their love became the first casualty of her ambition. Almost as a reminder of the price she paid, Jessica kept Tony's cherished love letters for over 30 years, something Tony never realized until now.
I guess what this says to me is that for all those years that I believed in her, she really did believe in me, and we really did have a good relationship, and that as meaningful as she was to me, I was to her. I don't think there was anything on this earth except for Jessica herself who could have stopped the drive.
WCBS TV audition, Jessica Savitch, take 1.
Fire Base 6 under North Vietnamese siege.
Soon after
Peace
leaving
talks
college,
again underway
Jessica
in Paris,
filmed this
and
first
Oscar
on-camera
Grant is off
audition.
to
She was
Mononos
raw but
and waiting.
captivating.
This is Jessica Savitch reporting.
But women in the news were so rare in the early 70s that no one took her seriously. It took a year to land her big break at KHOU-TV in Houston. In the eyes of her new bosses, this brash young woman was a mere experiment.
From Ellington Air Force Base, this is Jessica Savitch, News Watch 11.
The experiment worked. Jessica became Houston's first female news anchor. It brought her station from worst to first.
She had such celebrity in Houston that a disc jockey went on the air one day and sang a song, "I've never been to heaven, but I've seen Jessica on Channel 11.
With all of the built-in delays, this trial seems to be generating.
Her impact in Houston was not easily forgotten, especially by the women who followed her.
I can remember walking into the police chief's office and him looking at me. This man looked at me and he said, "Where's Jessica? Where's that cute little thing? And who are you?" And I thought, oh dear, I have no future in television. This was, my first job in television, and I was constantly being compared to Jessica. You have to remember why women are in this business at all. And the reason we're here was the civil rights movement of the 60s and the women's movement of the early 70s. It was pressure that got us in the door.
Technically, to rehabilitate means to make over in the same image.
When she left, they said, well, this experiment has not worked out too bad. Let's try another woman. I was lucky enough to be that other woman.
Pacifica staff will continue striking until their...
Jessica Savitch was a real tough act to follow, and I think that I envied Jessica for years.
She would meet Ron Kershaw, the love and heartbreak of her life, while competing to cover a story.
The Shakers had even planned a short vacation to Florida, but they never got to Florida.
Competition would fuel their passion and forever test their commitment.
Trying to meet the high cost of just staying alive. Ron Kershaw reporting from Stratford.
This is Jessica Savitch, News Watch 11.